The room was too bright. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a sterile glow over everything. Walls too white, sheets too clean, air too thin. Dmitri stood by the bedside, his fingers interlaced with Olga's trembling hand. Her knuckles were pale, pressed tight against his palm. He was sweating, but he didn't dare wipe his brow. He needed her to feel he was steady. "You're doing amazing," he whispered. Her face was contorted in pain, but she nodded, biting back a cry as another wave overtook her. The nurse encouraged her to push, counting aloud. Dmitri barely heard her. He focused on Olga, on the woman he loved, on the promise of their child, on the notebook tucked in his backpack in the corner, the fatherhood journal. 32 entries, each one a letter to the baby he'd been waiting 9 months to meet. The cry came like a thunderclap. Then silence, tension, a sharp buzz of anticipation, and finally a wail. The nurse lifted the baby into view, wrapped in blue, small fists flailing at the light. Dmitri's breath caught in his throat, his chest swelled. "Congratulations," the doctor said. "It's a boy." Tears welled up in Dmitri's eyes. A boy. His son. He kissed Olga's forehead, but before he could say a word, he heard it. "He looks like you," Olga whispered, eyes glassy, lips trembling, then a cough. Rough, throat clearing, it came from the corner. Dmitri turned. Olga's father, Nikolai, stood near the doorway, pale, uneasy. "Well, actually," he began, voice hoarse. Dmitri blinked. "What?" Nikolai didn't answer. His wife, Irina, placed a hand on his arm, but her face said everything. Her eyes shimmered with guilt. Olga let out a sob. The nurse stepped forward, holding a sealed envelope. "This came earlier today. It's for you," she said softly, her gaze careful. "From him." Dmitri stared at the envelope, at the black ink etched across its face. To Dmitri. "You'll know soon enough." He took it with numb fingers. A strange coldness spread through his chest. Olga began to cry. Not soft, grateful tears, but gasping, broken ones. "What the hell is this?" he whispered. No one spoke. Not Nikolai, not Irina, not even Olga, who couldn't meet his eyes. Dmitri backed away from the bed, nearly stumbling over the edge of the stool. The envelope shook in his hand. He didn't open it. "Not yet, not here." He turned, walked toward the door. The corridor outside was long and hollow. Footsteps echoed behind him, but he didn't stop. His ears were ringing, his heart thudding, the weight of a new life pressing into his arms. Yet, not his. Outside, the sky had gone gray. Rain was beginning to fall. He stood under the awning, envelope still unopened, and whispered to no one. "Who the hell is he?" The envelope sat unopened on the passenger's seat, an accusation in silence. Dmitri gripped the steering wheel, eyes fixed on the rain crawling down the windshield. The hospital lights behind him blurred into ghostly streaks. For a long moment, he didn't move. The weight of the day pressed down on his chest. Too heavy for breath. He reached for the envelope. The seal broke with a soft tear. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Nothing dramatic, no letter, no explanation, just a lab report. He scanned it once, then again, and then once more, slower. Parity exclusion, 99.99%. No ambiguity, no doubt. He stared at the name on the top line, Olga V. Mikhailova, Subject A, Dmitri I. Mikhailov, alleged father. And below it, a third name, one he didn't recognize, Alexei S. Voronov. His fingers tightened on the paper, creasing its edges. His stomach churned. The silence in the car was unbearable. He turned the key. The engine roared to life, but Dmitri didn't know where to go. Home? To the empty nursery, the pastel walls, the mobile still in its box? Or back to the hospital to scream, demand answers, demand why? Instead, he drove, aimlessly. City lights flared past his window, a kaleidoscope of lives untouched by his unraveling. At a red light, he pulled over and parked. His phone buzzed. Olga. He stared at the screen, watched it ring, let it go dark. Then he opened his voice memo app and hit record. His voice, when it came, was low. "Entry 33, I thought this one would be different," he said, eyes closed. "I thought I'd be holding you tonight, telling you about stars and lullabies and the dreams I had for us." His voice cracked. "But it turns out I was dreaming alone." He stopped the recording, sat in silence. A memory surfaced. Olga, 3 months pregnant, falling asleep with her head on his chest. He'd whispered into her belly, "You're mine already. I don't care who you become." I'll love you no matter what. What cruel irony. He drove again, this time toward his in-laws' house. The street was quiet, the porch light on. Irina opened the door before he knocked. I figured you'd come, she said, stepping aside. Her voice was calm, too calm, like she'd been preparing for this moment for weeks. Nikolai sat in the living room, silent, as always. Dmitri didn't sit. He held the lab report like a sword. Who is Alexei Voronov? His voice was quiet, controlled. Irina sighed. A mistake, she said. No, Dmitri replied, eyes hard. A stranger who's been part of my life without me knowing. That's not a mistake. That's betrayal. Irina didn't deny it. He was someone from Olga's work. A short thing, she ended it months ago. But she didn't end this, Dmitri said, holding up the paper. Irina looked down. She was scared. We all were. She thought maybe it wouldn't matter. And what about the test? He asked. She asked us to be there when she opened it, Irina admitted. She didn't want to be alone. We begged her to tell you. And when she didn't, his voice rose now, fury slipping through the cracks. You all just let me walk into that room, blind? Nikolai finally looked up. He wanted you to stay, he said. Alexei. He said if you could forgive her, if you could raise the boy as your own, maybe that would be enough. Dmitri's laugh was short, bitter. How noble of him. He turned to leave. Irina called after him. Dmitri, wait. He's still a baby. He hasn't done anything wrong. I know, Dmitri said, pausing at the door. That's what makes it worse. The apartment was dark when Dmitri returned. He didn't turn on the lights. He didn't need to see the place. He knew it too well. The shoes still neatly lined up by the door. The faint scent of lavender from the diffuser Olga insisted on keeping near the window. The untouched diaper bag by the hallway bench, ready for a future he no longer recognized. He dropped the lab report on the kitchen table. It landed beside the welcome baby balloons he'd bought 3 days ago. For a few minutes, he just stood there, not thinking, not moving. Then, as if pulled by some instinct, he walked to the bedroom. Her laptop was on the nightstand, screen dimmed but unlocked. She must have forgotten to close it before leaving for the hospital. His hand hovered over the trackpad. He hesitated. You already know enough to walk away, he told himself. But his fingers moved anyway. The truth had already shattered him. He needed to see what it looked like, typed out in black and white. The browser was still open. An email draft. Subject, you'll find out soon. The sender, Alexei Voronov. His stomach turned. There were dozens of messages in Olga's inbox, some archived, some not. He clicked through them, heart in his throat. The earliest ones were brief, cautious. From nearly a year ago. Thanks for yesterday. I haven't laughed like that in ages. Don't worry, it's just coffee, nothing more, right? Then, over time, the tone shifted. More emotional, more vulnerable, more dangerous. You're the only person who sees me anymore. I wish I could tell him the truth, but I'm scared. I don't want to lose both of you. Dmitri leaned back, jaw clenched. Each message was a thread unraveling a story he hadn't been invited to witness. A parallel life written between work meetings, dinner conversations, and evenings spent in silence. One message, sent about a month before the birth, froze him. From Olga. He bought a crib last night. He was so proud, taking forever to put it together. I stood in the doorway and watched him with tears in my eyes. Not because I was happy, but because I felt like a thief in my own home. Dmitri closed the laptop. His hands were trembling. That night, he remembered it vividly, the way she hugged him afterward, quiet and long. He had taken it for tenderness. In truth, it had been a farewell. He stood and walked into the nursery. The room was still unfinished, just a painted wall with stars, a changing table they'd assembled together, a stack of unread parenting books. He stepped inside slowly, like entering a sacred place now defiled by lies. On the shelf beside a half-packed hospital bag sat the Fatherhood Journal. He opened it, entry 12. Olga felt him kick today. She laughed, really laughed like she used to. For a second, I saw the girl I fell in love with. I don't know who he'll be, but if he has that laugh, I'll be the luckiest man alive. He closed the journal gently. There were no answers in those pages, just evidence. Evidence that he had been all in, heart first, blind. The doorbell rang. It was past midnight. He considered not answering, but something, curiosity, maybe defiance, pushed him forward. He opened the door to find Olga. No makeup, puffy eyes, wrapped in her hospital-issued robe under a long coat. She looked like a ghost of the woman he used to know. I didn't know where else to go, she said. He stepped aside without a word. She entered slowly, pausing when she saw the envelope on the table. So you opened it. I did. Silence. Olga wrung her hands. I was going to tell you, before the birth. You had 9 months? I was afraid, she said, afraid you'd leave. Afraid you'd stop looking at me the way you used to. He shook his head, half laughing. You mean with love? Her lips trembled. I ended it a long time ago. It was never about him. It was a moment, a stupid moment when I felt lost and he felt safe. It turned into something I didn't want. But you wanted to keep the lie, he said. I wanted to believe the lie, she corrected, because you were the only real thing in my life. I thought if I could just hold on until he was born, maybe we could still be a family. Dimitri walked past her into the nursery. She followed. He gestured toward the room. You see this? This was for our child, not his, not yours, ours. Tears slid down her cheeks. He turned to her. I don't know if I can be in this marriage anymore, but I do know one thing. She held her breath. I'm not angry at him. The baby, he's innocent, and right now he needs someone. I don't know who I am to him yet, but I'll figure it out. For his sake, not yours. Olga's knees buckled slightly. She leaned on the doorframe for support. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know. He looked down at the journal in his hand, then set it gently on the changing table. I need space, Olga. I need time, and you need to be honest. With yourself, with me, with him. She nodded. He didn't walk her out. Just stood in the nursery, alone again, but this time with something fragile flickering inside him. Not hope, exactly. Something more dangerous. Possibility? It had been 5 days. 5 days since the truth arrived in an envelope. 5 days since Dimitri's life split into 2 versions. Before and after. He hadn't gone back to the hospital. He hadn't spoken to Olga except for a brief message asking if the baby was healthy. She'd replied, he's okay. No name yet, still waiting. Waiting for what? He didn't know. Maybe for the man who used to believe in her. Maybe for someone who didn't exist anymore. He was sleeping on the couch at his friend Andre's place. A sparse apartment on the 12th floor, overlooking the gray sprawl of the city. The skyline blurred into fog most mornings, as if even the world was undecided about what came next. On the 6th day his mother called, he answered out of instinct more than intention. Dima! Her voice was warm, cautious. I heard. Olga's mother called me. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at a cup of tea he hadn't touched. Did she also tell you I'm not the father? There was a pause. Then, she told me everything. Of course she did. Irina had always liked to control the narrative. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, Mama, he said. His mother exhales. When you were 8, you brought home a stray kitten. It had fleas, half its fur missing. You hid it under your bed, remember? Dimitri closed his eyes. What does this have to do with? You told me he didn't ask to be left outside. And when I said we couldn't keep him, you cried for 2 days. Not for you. For him. He's redemption. I'm not saying forgive her, she continued. I'm saying you've always known how to love without conditions. You don't have to decide right now what that means, but you have to ask yourself, is your love only real when everything's perfect? He didn't have a reply, only silence. After the call, he found himself walking. The streets were wet from an early rain. He wandered without aim, hands deep in his coat pockets, until he found himself in front of the maternity hospital. He wasn't sure how he got there. The building looked different now, smaller, less sacred. Inside, the receptionist asked if he was family. I'm figuring that out, he said. The nurse on the 3rd floor remembered him. Her name tag read Alina. You were here the night he was born, she said kindly. Dimitri nodded. Would you like to see him? I'm not sure, he said honestly, but he followed her anyway. The room was quiet. Olga wasn't there. In the clear plastic crib, the baby lay swaddled, his face serene in sleep. A soft wheeze with every breath, a tiny hand curled into a loose fist. Dimitri stood beside the crib, hands in his pockets. I don't know who I am to you, he whispered. But I used to write you letters before you were born. I wanted you so badly it scared me. He leaned closer. You look like someone I could have loved. He reached out, gently placed a finger near the baby's palm. The hand twitched, then closed around him. His throat tightened. Later, in the hallway, Olga appeared. She must have seen him from down the corridor. Her hair was tied back, no makeup. Her eyes were swollen, but alert. You came, she said softly. I don't know what I'm doing, Dimitri replied. That makes 2 of us. They stood there not speaking, just breathing the same air. He's calm around you, she said. He cries a lot, but when I came back into the room just now, he was quiet. That's new. Dimitri looked at her. Have you told him? The other one? Actually, yes. She looked away. No. He said he's not ready. that he has another family. This wasn't part of the plan. Dimitri's jaw clenched. Of course it wasn't. I don't want him involved, she said. I mean it. He's not who you are. He didn't respond. I've made a mess of everything, she whispered, but I can't undo it. All I can do is be honest now. I'm not asking you to fix it. Just be part of his life if you want to be. Dimitri exhaled slowly. That's the thing. I don't know what I want yet, but I'm starting to know what I don't want. And that's to live in a lie. Olga nodded, tears streaming now. I'll come back tomorrow, he said, turning toward the exit. She wiped her face. What should I tell him his name is? He paused, looked back. Tell him I'll let him choose when he's old enough. The apartment was silent when Dimitri returned the next evening. He'd stayed in a small guest house outside the city for 2 nights after visiting the baby. No calls, no messages. He hadn't even opened his journal, though it was with him the whole time, carried like an anchor. Or maybe a relic from a life that had cracked open. Now home again, he noticed the smallest things had shifted. The crib was gone. Olga had come back and taken it. The mobile, the diapers, the soft yellow blanket they'd picked out together vanished. The room was empty now, still painted in stars. Only one thing remained: the journal. It sat on the windowsill of the nursery, untouched, closed. Dimitri walked in slowly. The setting sun cast long shadows across the floor. The quiet wasn't heavy. It was hollow, like something waiting to be filled. He picked up the journal, ran his fingers along its worn cover, then sat cross-legged on the floor. For a while, he didn't open it. He just sat with it. Finally, he flipped to the last written page. Entry 32. The day before the birth. Tomorrow you'll be here. I don't know your name yet, or what you'll look like, but I know one thing. I'll be there. I'll hold you. I'll keep you safe. You're already the best thing I've ever made. Dimitri exhaled through his nose, a bitter smile flickering across his lips. Then, slowly, he turned the page and began a new entry. Entry 33. I saw you yesterday. You didn't cry, just stared at me with those open eyes like you were already trying to understand the world. You held my finger. I didn't pull away. He paused, and then wrote, I'm not sure who I am to you yet, but I know who I want to be, someone who doesn't disappear when things fall apart. Someone who chooses you, not because I have to, but because you're worth it. He signed it, closed the journal. Later that night, he stood by the kitchen counter, holding his house key in one hand. He stared at it for a long time, then placed it on the table beside the journal, walked to the hallway, picked up his coat. He didn't slam the door when he left, just closed it quietly behind him. Outside, the city had softened. The wind was cold but calm. The streets were familiar, but he wasn't walking in circles anymore. He had a direction now. At the station, he bought a one-way ticket, not far, just far enough to be somewhere new, somewhere quiet, a place to think, to breathe, to figure out who he was outside of what was taken from him. As the train pulled in, he pulled out his phone and opened a blank message to Olga. He typed, when he's ready for stories, read him the journal, tell him I wrote it when I thought I knew everything, and then I kept writing when I realized I didn't. He hit send, and as the train doors opened, he stepped inside. The city blurred behind him, and for the first time in days, he didn't feel lost. Not exactly found, but not lost. Somewhere in between.